Hello, how are you there? What day is today? Today is, check my timer, October 27, 2021. It's 7:20 in the evening here in the Philippines, Southern Luzon. How are you, wherever you are in the world? How are you? Let's talk about Undas. Let's talk about Undas. Bikol Undas. What are our Undas traditions? What are our Undas traditions? By the way, I'm Jason Chancoco. I'm your host. I am a college instructor, professor. I am also a writer, rock guitar. As I was saying, I am also into the outdoors, into prepping and survivalism as a useful hobby. All right. What do we mean by Undas? What do we mean by Undas? Undas actually means unos días de los almas y de los santos. Unos días de los almas y de los santos. Undas, or days of the souls and of the saints. Days of the souls and of the saints. And what are some beliefs associated with us? Well, number one is the usual visit them or they visit you. Visit them, they visit you. So there's a belief that if we do not visit our loved ones in the cemetery, they will be the ones who will visit us instead. What are other beliefs? Here in Bicol, particularly, we do the so-called apag. So, apag. What are the other traditions related to Undas? If you know of any, kindly comment down below. All right, kindly comment down below. Okay, as I said, one of the beliefs, traditions that we follow is the so-called apag. He goes to the cemetery to visit our loved ones there. Some of us remain at home and would offer the so-called apag. Food, drinks, candles, prayers, placed before the photograph of the dearly departed. Apag. Do you still observe apag? Actually, we also do that when it's the birthday or the death day of that dearly departed. Apag. Well, of course, there's the cemetery visit. Where we do clean up and we do some paint job. Okay, paint job on the burial site of our dearly departed. So we go there to do cleanup, paint job, and then during the Undas day per se, we would have food, music. There would be revelry. There would be revelry in the cemetery. Um, well, there would there would be alcoholic drinks as well, etc., etc. And I remember when I was in high school, we would play Metallica. We would play Metallica, even if we are in the cemetery. Imagine that, death metal in the cemetery, Metallica. That's for our cemetery visit. Food, music, revelry. All right, kindly comment down below if you know of any uh, Undas tradition from your area. Well, the cemetery visit would also be a chance for us to have some kind of family gathering. And it would usually extend even to our relatives. We would end up meeting in the area and we would have a family gathering. And for the younger ones, it would also be a chance to do some flirting. Do some flirting and engage in courtship. Flirting and courtship. It would be a chance for them to meet up with their significant other, especially if they are still too young for said purpose. So they would, take advantage of the occasion. Everybody in the town or the city, would be there. Almost everybody, I mean, would be there. So it would be a chance for them to meet up. What else? Well, is this particular celebration of the Undas related to the Catholic faith? Well, I believe it is because there is a belief in the so-called purgatory. There's a Catholic doctrine called purgatory, wherein it is believed that the departed or the souls would go there to be cleansed and purified before they go to heaven. If they're not, a hopeless case, if they are a hopeless case, then they ought to go to hell directly. There is that belief. So, Catholic doctrine of purgatory. Now the question now is, how about indigenous beliefs? How about indigenous beliefs? Bicol native beliefs. Well, there is the belief by old Bicolanos, pre-Hispanic Bicolanos, on the ancestors as being intercessors and guardians and in constant communion with God or Gugurang in heaven or Kamurawayan. There was the so-called ancestral worship, Anito worship. So how about indigenous beliefs, Bicol native beliefs? Well, we used to indulge in ancestral worship or Anito beliefs, or the belief in Anitos. We believe that our dearly departed, becomes intercessors in constant communion with God, Gugurang, or God called Gugurang in heaven or Kamurawayan. So what can we read about it? We can find something in the book of Dr. Dan Herona from Epic to History. Okay, we can find something about our ancestral worship as Bicolanos before. The belief in Anitos. So let's quote the book. I think it's page 27. They kept their memories alive, the memories of the departed, by representing them in idols or statues called lagdong, crudely carved out of stone, wood, or clay. They prayed to these statues just as Christians do to to their saints. They were carefully enthroned in an indigenous rattan basket called Lagdoan. So that's our reading about Anitos as per Bikol ancestral worship during pre-Hispanic times. So how about belief ancestral worship or the Anito worship? Usually Undas is associated as well with the so-called Halloween celebration of the Halloween season. The question now is Halloween native? Is Halloween a native belief? Well, the Halloween actually started 2,000 years ago. It's actually a Celtic holiday. Okay, it's a Celtic holiday. It's actually called Samhain. Samhain. Okay, it's a Celtic holiday called Samhain. Samhain was celebrated by the Celtics during end of harvest and start of winter. Okay, during end of harvest and start of winter. In winter is associated with illness and death. All right, winter associated with death and illness. And what would the Celtics do to celebrate their supposed the Halloween season? Well, they would wear costumes out of animal heads and skins, actually to ward off ghosts. So there. But then later on, Halloween became part of American culture, part of American tradition. They added the so-called trick or treat, usually indulged in by children. Trick or treat. And needless to say, this culture, tradition was brought here by the Americans. And later on, it thrived, particularly during the 90s, in exclusive Bernal et al. Just glitch again. Tracing tradition and understanding Undas by Bernal et al. Published in Hagbayon, Ateneo de Manila. The Americans, and it thrived, and it actually started. It actually bloomed during the 1990s in exclusive villages at that, Americanized villages. And later on, it was used by local companies, establishments, and malls to hype up the season for commercial purposes. So the local companies, the establishments, restaurants, malls, bars actually use the tradition of trick or treat or Halloween as one way to boost their market or their income. Again, part of an article by Bernal et al. At the Hagbayon, entitled Tracing Tradition and Understanding Undas. Well, how about objects of entities and monsters? Witches, we also have our local version of the witch, entities, and monsters. So let's read about them. First, reading this particular book by Malanyaon. By Nasayaw, Eden Nasayaw, Bikol Beliefs and Folkways, a showcase of tradition, published in Legazpi City by Hablon Dawani Publishing House. Hablon Dawani Publishing House. So we can read more from that book, coming from oral tradition, about our entities or objects of locals' care, katatakutan ng mga Bicolano, local witches, entities, and monsters. Well, one is the so-called agta. We are familiar with the Agta as part of the IP or indigenous peoples, but apparently, as per oral tradition, there's a belief that the Agta is a negative spirit, but this is not good for our Agta brothers and sisters. Well, let's quote the book. It says here that Agta is a black spirit that inhabits the balete or talisay tree. It is usually harmless but may attack when threatened. The Agta is usually thought to be the culprit behind food strangely getting lost. So imagine that they are believed to be a black spirit inhabiting the balete or talisay, just like Encanto, etc., and usually harmless and may attack when threatened only, and usually is responsible when food get lost. So I think this is a sarcastic remark against our IPs, the Agda member of the IP. Actually, this is from Samuel Escorel of Sorsogon City, 50 years old. Another item related to our Agta brothers and sisters. An Agta can stand still for hours on end. It is black as charcoal. His children are seen swinging from twig to twig in the forest as they look for food. This is from Vitalina Vitalina Bore, 77 from Catanduanes. Also from Lina Aurin, 62 from Bakakay Albay. It's found in page 101 of the Book of Nasayaw. So from oral tradition, this is actually, I think, just a kind of a reputation, of the Agta to these people who are responding to the queries, to the respondents, who is Lina Aurin and Vitalina Borge. What else? Now this one is also about the aswang. It is said that farmers prepare a spear or a bolo in case the aswang materializes. So this is from page 103 of said book by Nasayaw. This is now on the aswang. So here it is believed that a spear or a bolo can actually fight the aswang. So again, we also have our local version of monsters, gulls, etc. We have the aswang. What else? Another quote from the book. Bakunawa is a humongous dragon that is so huge that it can swallow the moon and thereby causing eclipses. Such eclipse is believed to bring people. This is a common belief here in Bikol called Bakunawa. Mind you, Bakunawa is also present in Visayan oral tradition. It's also present in Visayan oral tradition and somewhat showing us that indeed the Bicolanos are very much related to the Visayans. Again, about the Bakunawa. The Bakunawa is a serpent that lives in the sea. It causes the moon or the sun to disappear during an eclipse. In certain times of the year, it rises from the ocean and swallows the moon. This one again is from Vitalina Borre, 77 years old. Also about Bakunawa. The Bakunawa, I think, is really a common belief between the Bicolanos and the Visayans. Mind you, Bakunawa is also a hilt carving for the Sansibar of Leyte. Sansibar, the sword, made by people from Leyte. More entities. Let's have more readings. The Tagungerit. The Tagungerit is a creature that is said to be half hidden behind trees and leaves as it wears a big smile. Children are afraid of the Tagungerit, whom they might find as they play hide and seek. So there is a belief, folklore, a folk belief that in the forest or when people or when kids or children play hide and seek, they might just, they are being cautioned because they might just come across the tagongirit, which is a creature that is said to be half hidden behind trees and leaves, wearing a big smile. Actually, it is believed that tagongirit is actually it's actually manifested as the hilt carving for the Bikol ginunting. It's actually that's one belief, no? That's one belief. By the way, the quote on tagongirit is from Ponciano Saminyado of Daraga Albay. Now let's talk about the tikbalang. A person who gets hold of one of the tikbalang's spines can use it as anting-anting and make the tikbalang his slave. This is from Rolando de Leon, 78 years old, from Pilar, Sorsogon. And from Miguel Azurin, 84 years old, from Legazpi, Albay. From Amadea Hernandez, 37 years old, from Sorsogon City. Page 121 of the said book, the Book of Nasayaw. So actually, we know that the anting-anting is it's the word of God, while the agimat is from nature. So maybe the responders here, or the respondents, interchange the anting-anting and the what? The agimat, because here it is mentioned that the tikbalang spines can be used as anting-anting. Maybe he meant, or they meant, agimat. Okay, more witches. Now let's talk about witches. Witches are afraid of the hard broom. Yeah, of the hard broom in Bolo, especially when they are left at the door of the house. So there's this belief that you have to leave hard broom in Bolo at the door of the house, because it's one way to ward off witches. Now this belief was shared to us by Carmen Valenzuela, 42 years old, from Milaor, Camarines Sur. She was 42 at the time during the interview. The book is called Bikol Beliefs and Folkways, a Showcase of Tradition, published in Legazpi City by Hablon Dawani Publishing House in 2010. So there. What more? Now let's talk about witches. More about witches. Now these quotes are from the book of Dr. Dani Herona, From Epic to History. The witch was thought to acquire its power by undergoing an initiation rite called lobos. It was said that this required the would-be witch to stay for some time in the forest or in caves where spirits were believed to dwell. So, this particular quote is telling us how witches came to be. So how the belief of people before as to how witches came to be. They said that the witch had to undergo a sort of an initiation, and the initiation was called lobos. Okay, it was done by staying inside a cave for some time, or staying in the forest for some time, because it's believed that the forest and the caves are places where spirits dwell. Page 31 of From Epic History by Dani Herona. Now early Spanish settlers found early Spanish settlers like Captain Miguel de Lorca was able to learn, from the natives some names of monsters that were feared by the native Bicolanos, namely Naguined, Macbarubak, Arapayan. So these are the three names of some demons feared by the Bicolanos before. Nagined, Makbarubak, and Arapayan, demons. Now let's go back to witches. So again, we also have the demons. Okay, the witch offered to them, the demons, a sacrifice of coconut oil and crocodile tooth. This oil was sold to those who desired to possess the same power to rouse demons. This was done by offering sacrifices and invoking the name of the demons, beseeching them that the power which it previously possessed may be transferred to the buyer of the oil. So the commercial side of witchcraft in ancient Bikol. So Bicolanos believed in demons as well, namely Nagined, Makbarubak, and Arapayan. And witches, would offer sacrifices like coconut oil, crocodile tooth to these demons in exchange of a kind of an oil that the witch is selling to other people, and that the possessor of the oil would then have the power to what? The power to invoke the demons, the ancient Bicolano demons. So again, that's from the book of Herona, entitled Epic to History. All right, more. Even without the use of any medicine, now let's talk about another entity from the witches. Let's talk about the Hukluban. Even without the use of any medicine, it was believed that by simply raising his hands, he could kill whoever he had chosen to kill. The Hukluban. So another object of fear by ancient Bicolanos. And he could also heal, this Hukluban could also perform healing rituals called the Haplos, but for a fee, Healing ritual for a fee. Okay, may kapalit. And it would usually be via gifts or tuba, a drink. More monsters, more Bicolano monsters. Let's now talk about the Silagan. Now, Silagan was mentioned by Fray Juan de Plasencia, a 17th century Franciscan historian. According to Fray Juan de Plasencia, the Silagan, whose office it was, it saw anyone clothed in white to tear his liver, ate it, thus causing his death. This, like the preceding, was in the island of Catanduanes. Let no one consider this fable, because in Calauan they tore out in this way through the anus all the intestines of a Spanish notary who was buried in Calilaya by Fray Juan de Merida. So this is from the book by Lisboa, Fray of Lisboa. He's from Lisboa, quoting Fray Juan de Plasencia. Now, Fray Juan de Plasencia is talking about the Silagan, Bicol monster, who would kill, who would tear the body of anyone wearing white. So usually a friar. So that's why Fray de Plasencia seems to be a believer as well, or a believer of the entity called Silagan. By the way he wrote his report, it appeared that he actually believed it. No, he was actually afraid of the so-called Silagan. Imagine it would kill anyone wearing white, tearing the liver, eating the liver. Okay, and according to Fray Plasencia, it happened in Calauan when one Silagan tore out through the anus all the intestines of a Spanish notary. And this Spanish notary was buried in Calilaya by Fray Juan de Merida. So there. That's for our monsters, Bicol monsters. Yeah. Do we have Bicol monsters? We have. We have Bicol monsters. We have Bicol monsters. Do we have Bicol witches? Yes, we had Bicol witches. We have big witches in our culture, Bicol culture. So that's for our you know so-called objects of local scare, of fear by the locals. Local witches, entities, and monsters. Let's add more. We have the San Telmo, the San Telmos. But actually, the San Telmo is actually from the term Saint Elmo's fire. So it is actually, a borrowed concept. But it is believed by Bicolanos that if you are a land grabber, that particular land will be infested with San Telmos. Okay, balls of fire just floating around the land. And also, let's add the Taong Lipod. The Taong Lipod, they are, unseen entities that are invisible, and they live among us. They live among us. They have their own ways, but they are invisible and they are capable of causing us harm, which is weird because we can't see them. And if we actually bump into them and we hurt them, they will get back to us. But according to oral lore, uh, it is believed that only the bad taong-lipod would do that, because like people, we have good people, we have bad people. We have professionals, we have bums. Well, not to downgrade our friends who are bums. We have well-behaved people. We also have the siga, something like that. The kanto boy, siga. And usually, according to oral lore, according to lore, it is usually the siga, or the bad boy Encanto, or the bad boy Taong Lipod, who would avenge, or would do vengeance every time he is hurt by people like us who cannot see them, which is, as you know, it's unfair to 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 retaliate if that person was not at fault, because he could not see the entity. The entity Taong Lipod is actually invisible. So why punish the entity? So how about objects and of local scare? We do have our local witches, the aswang. Uh, we do have the Taong Lipod, etc. The Taong Lipod now actually can be explained by quantum physics, because according to lore, the Taong Lipod, they are of the same number in population as humans. If this is our population as humans, this is also their population as Taong Lipod. They also have their government, they have they also have races. They also have what? They also have their leaders, president. They also have buildings, cities, vehicles. They also have professions. That's for our Taong Lipod. But then quantum physics somehow can explain it as a kind of an alternate universe, or a kind of what? A kind of fifth dimension. So connection between quantum physics and the Taong Lipod. Well, at the end of the day, it's really just interplay between science, spirituality. Borderline of science becomes spirituality and mythology. So that's it. That's for our discussion for today. Bicol Undas. All right. We talked about Undas. Okay. About our Undas traditions. Okay. We learned that it's actually Unos Dias de los Almas y de los Santos, Days of the Souls and of the Saints. So let's visit them, or they visit us. All right. Because of the pandemic, we have new, rules, protocols as for the Undas. I heard that until tomorrow we can visit the cemeteries, November 28th, but after that, no more. October 28. After that, no more. Until November 5, I think the cemeteries will be, closed. Will not be available for the public. So the public cannot go there until November 5. Yeah, we talked about the pag, and we also believe that when a butterfly or a moth, visits the house, that said the moth or butterfly could be the embodiment of our dearly departed. So when we do cemetery visits, we do cleanups, etc., and we have food, music, and it becomes a family gathering, reunion, and the young people would even indulge in flirting and courtship. What else? It is connected to the Catholic faith. We said because of the belief in purgatory. All right, and how about indigenous beliefs? We said that we have the so-called ancestral worship, belief in anitos, and the Halloween is actually native. It's actually not native. I mean, because it's actually a Celtic holiday, Samhain, Celtic, brought here by the Americans, and it's actually quite an elite. Used to be an elite celebration because it was usually done in exclusive villages here in the Philippines during the 1990s. But now it is quite widespread, the trick or treat. Okay, somehow influenced by local companies, establishments, malls, etc., uh, who make use of the celebration as a way to also create market. And again, we said that we have versions of witches as well, aswang entities, uh, etc., etc. Taong lipod, in that it is what? Something that can be explained by quantum physics, and that there is interplay between science, spirituality, and mythology. Now, what can you say about our session for today? Kindly post down below your comment. All right, this channel is Hagbayon channel, devoted to current events, literature, music, martial arts, blade culture, prepping, survivalism. So I'm Jason, your host, signing off. Remember, the pen is mightier with the sword.